Hey, do you consider yourself one of those folks that's clueless in the kitchen? Well, if that's you, I'm going to share my two biggest, most amazing secrets with you right now. And we're gonna capitalize on just one of them today. The first one is if I'm making sweet things in the kitchen, homemade vanilla is going to take you over the top, no matter what. You can dab it on yourself for perfume and put it in almost anything, and they're gonna think that you're amazing as a cook. The second one, though, is for savory type meals. And today I'm gonna share the most beloved ingredient you probably haven't thought of that's used the world over to make things taste amazing. And it's not salt or pepper. Stick around. All right, I've already shared with you my biggest secret for sweet dishes, and if you haven't watched our episode on how to make your own vanilla from scratch, I hope you'll go over and watch that as soon as you're finished here. Today, I'm gonna talk about the most beloved ingredient. I hope you were thinking about it, wondering what was that? And I hope you guessed correctly, because if you thought it was onions, you would be correct. The world over, almost any country you go to, if there is a savory dish being made, to ramp it up, the most underestimated, underrespected vegetable that we add to these is onion. Have you ever thought about that? Besides salt and pepper, if you can put onion in a dish, it's going to give it some sort of a richness, a warmth to it. It has sweetness and a savoriness to it, kind of a unique taste only to onions and alliums. Garlic has that similar flavor to it. And so I want you to think about this. If you're a brand new cook and not sure what to add, chopped onions is the way to go. If you don't have chopped onions, get minced onion from the store. Or if you don't have minced onion, get some onion powder. Any of those are going to be fantastic. Now, what I am going to say as a prepper and a homemaker and a homesteader is that I have never tasted anything better as far as that wonderful onion taste as my own dried onions. Pick them out of the garden yourself, propagate them so you have more coming up, and they're wonderful because they grow all through the year, even through the winter. Onions are very cold hardy, so in most growing zones you can grow those all through the year, and it's wonderful if you put some in late in the fall and let them get started. Even in extra flower pots you have sitting around the house, I want you to think about this and see what you can come up with to get some of your own going. Nextly, I want to tell you this, and no, that's not a word. Some of you have written and told me, but you can dry onions, and I want to show you that today. There's one way that you can dry them in a food dehydrator. You could dry them in your oven. You could dry them in a freeze dryer. And I'm so blessed to have all three options for myself. You could even dry them outside, I suppose. I haven't done that, but I'll bet you could just as easily in a nice, hot, sunny day with low humidity. I want to show you how I dry mine and then how I take it one step even further to make them absolutely exceptional and shelf stable for up to 25 years, retaining that nutrition. Here we go. All right, I'm going to make this really simple. I want you to go out to the store if you don't have your onions from your own garden to work with. I want you to go and get yourself the biggest, cheapest bag you can find of good quality onions. They can be white, they can be yellow, they can be red. I use all three and I love all of them. They could be Walla Walla Sweets or Vidalia onions, whichever kind you like. And I would say strong is good if you're making them to last for 25 years. Go ahead and get strong ones. But any of them are going to work for this. So go out and get yourself a big bag, and then you're going to cut it open. And it's time for us to wash the onions if we need to. They usually come pretty clean. And so I don't tend to wash my onions at all. And you can tell me I'm just a amazingly terrible person if you'd like. I usually just inspect it to make sure there's no mold growing, because often onions get kind of that mildew on them. And I'm going to take off the paper that's on the outside. Now, because I am a prepper, you're going to hear me say, don't throw this away. In fact, save all of it. And I have a can standing by that keeps all of my wonderful onions scraps ready to go, because I can take all of those papers, I can compress them into a bag and put them into the freezer until I have enough, and then they're fantastic to use in soups and stews, or making a good broth, or either vegetable broth or bone broth. It's going to give a lot of flavor just by putting those papers in them, if they're nice and clean and healthy. Once I've got my onions ready to go, and for this past batch, I'll just tell you, 8 to 10 onions is not a bad number at all for you to work with. I happen to have a medium-sized Harvest Right freeze dryer. I strongly recommend them. They're fantastic, and I'll put links below if you're interested in finding out more. But each tray is going to hold approximately 2 large onions about this size. This is kind of a medium-large onion. Many would call it a large onion, and these probably are medium-sized or small. But 2 large onions fit on each tray. So with 4 trays, I can do 8 onions at a time. Sometimes I stretch it up to 10 with a couple of the smaller ones also added on there. So you're going to cut the top off, just like you see me doing here. And like I said, we'll keep that and put that in the freezer. But here's a secret that I want you to know about. If you have an onion that's nice and healthy and isn't a whole year old and just dried up and decrepit, I want you to cut a little generously off the bottom tail of it, okay? And the reason being, nobody told you this, but if you get about this much, instead of just cutting off the nubbin, if you cut about that much, this is your opportunity to, once again, replant something you got from the grocery store that you can propagate so that you have your own onion harvest. But all I want you to do is peel off any of the extra tissue paper that onion has made around the bottom of it, so it's nice and healthy. And then some people like to set this right like it is, not fully submerged, but just so the bottom of it is resting in water on their windowsill. And you'll notice within just about 3 days you'll have roots coming. But I've even skipped that process. When I have it like this, I just go and tuck it under the dirt surface in an empty flower pot, or whatever I have that has flowers already growing, just tuck it in beside it. And by spring, or in a few months, you're going to see already onion sprouts coming out of that, and you'll soon have your own onions growing from that nubbin. Now, is that incredible or what? Okay. So save the bottoms, and we're going to do that with them. The next thing I'm going to do is just make a little tiny slice right through the sides. And I know some of you have your own special method of peeling onions, but this is generally how I do it. And it's so funny, all of us have our favorite way. You use yours. And of course, I know that many of you are going to comment and tell me your favorite way to peel onions that keep you from crying. But if you do it outside like I'm doing it, that kind of takes care of the smell right there. Once I've got a good onion though, I break all the rules, because the gourmet chefs are going to tell you have to do it a very specific and particular way. And I am so thankful none of them are here to judge me. So I usually just cut the onion right in half and lay it face down on the tray. Then one of the 2 ways, you can start this way or this way, it doesn't matter, you do what works for you. Just keep your fingers out of the way as you're chopping it. And literally for this, I love that we can make great big pieces. So you just cut giant bite-sized pieces if you like. They don't have to be small, and they don't really have to be uniform, even though I suppose someone would say that's a wise thing to do. But you can cut them either way. I just do it about 3 slices one direction and about 4 slices the other direction. All right, if you have a food dehydrator, you know what this is. That's the tray with a nice mesh. And if you're going to do it on a baking sheet in your oven, you can do it that way. But I'm just going to take that and spread it out about evenly on that tray. And we'll cut up a couple of more and do it just like that. Here's what it's going to look like on a freeze-dry tray. This again is the medium size, and you've seen this before if you have a freeze dryer. You can have big old chunks or little tiny ones. Either one are going to work fine for this, so long as you just want to maximize the space. So I could probably fit one more small onion on here if I wanted to just fill up some of these gaps. All I have to make sure is that they don't come up much higher than this lip that's on here, and it's ready to freeze dry. To set you up for success, let me just talk you through a couple of items that I think are really helpful if you want to do this successfully. Of course, one is going to be a fantastic knife, and I have to say thank you again to one of you Prepsteaders who sent this to me. This is a very precious knife from Forge 37, handmade Damascus steel custom knife from Forge 37. I'll put the link below, because if you want a good Christmas gift for someone this year, I can strongly recommend the knives that this man makes. Also, you want a good cutting board. Any will do, but a clean one is going to be the best bet. And then you want a good mortar and pestle, or if you have a blender that can pulverize powders very, very fine, that's going to work just fine too. I love using a mortar and pestle. It makes me feel like I'm going back in time and gives me a little bit of a workout and just makes me connect with the food even a little bit more. The last thing you're going to want is a jar of some sort to store your onions in. And you notice these are freeze dried, and when you freeze dry, it makes them the same size that you put them in. And so if you're going to store them this way, know that you'll need plenty of jars that are relatively large sized. Of course, if we were to dehydrate them, then they get really, really tight and crispy and all shriveled up. That's what they're going to look like out of the dehydrator. Now, the end product we're going to have is going to be wonderful onion powder, and that's what this is right here. So you'll want a pretty jar to store that in. You'll use it daily. And then there's one secret ingredient that I'm going to tell you that it might be nice for you to go ahead and have on hand, and that is some diatomaceous earth. Food grade, because there's some diatomaceous earth that is not food grade, and you want to make sure that it is labeled as such, but this is an anti-caking agent. So to put just a little pinch of that into my onion powder is going to keep it from caking up and turning into a rock. All right, this is what they look like when they're finished freeze drying. Can you tell any difference? Literally, if I take that, I can just crush it with my fingers into a powder and it floats away. It's that simple. This is how you make onion powder, and it's amazing and scrumptious, and very quickly it will soak up the moisture that's in the air if I don't quickly pulverize it now or put it into a jar with some oxygen absorbers, because onions lose their moisture very quickly, but then they suck it up again really fast. So I'm going to take this mortar and pestle, and I'm just going to dump about half of it in there at a time, and it goes super fast. I'll show you how this works, and you're going to love it. I wish you could smell it though, because it smells amazing and oniony, just like this. All right, look at that glorious powder. Now, there are a few little pieces in there that I haven't gotten, but look at how fine that has made. It's almost like a flour that you could bake with, but it doesn't have gluten, so that won't work exactly like that. But if we would try it, you know I'm going to experiment a little. But fantastic powder that is absolutely wonderful, smells rich. When it's done in the freeze dryer like this, remember that it's holding about 90% or more of its nutrition content for up to 25 years. That is absolutely exceptional. Better than if you were to try and preserve it any other way. This is going to hold its nutrition content, which to me is very important for the long run. So now that I have it in powder, I'm just going to put it into a jar, and it's ready to have an oxygen absorber put in it, and it'll hold indefinitely. Some folks would like to, or suggest that you run it through a sieve. I'm just going to use it exactly as it is, so I'm not even going to worry about any extra little chunks that I might have missed. But there's half of a tray. In other words, that's at least one large onion and maybe a little bit of a small onion in there. Can you believe it goes down that small? All right, let's get the rest of it in there. Okay, there's the other half of that tray. We've got it ready to go. Again, absolutely more beautiful, fantastic powder that's ready to be put away for the pantry. And again, sift it if you want. I don't really sift it. It hasn't needed it for me, but we'll get it shaken down in there. And look at that. That is 2 of these large onions like this. Can you believe that 2 of these make that much onion powder? And that's pretty fluffed up too. Now, to preserve this, like I said again, and this is a jar I've already preserved with it, I'm just going to put a little pinch of that diatomaceous earth in. And so remember, diatomaceous earth is all natural. It's super, super powdery. And I'm just going to put maybe, the equivalent of a 1/4 teaspoon in or less. It doesn't have a taste. All right, I'll wipe my hands off here. And now that I have that in there, you can either shake it up or you could stir it up, whatever works for you. But make sure you get a lid on it quick. And this that I have stored for ready to be on the shelf for up to 25 years, I've got 2 oxygen absorbers in there. I am sure that it was totally dry, so I'm not worried about needing any kind of moisture absorption in there, but I do have the oxygen absorbers, and this is ready for me to use in my recipes in the week to come. Or more than a week. That's a lot of onion powder right there. Now you've got your secret weapon. The next time you have guests over and you're making morning eggs for them, or perhaps you're grilling a steak out on the grill and you want to take it up a notch, go grab your homemade onion powder and don't tell them what you did, because I'm telling you, they're going to say, wow, this is great. What is your secret? And you can just keep it between you and Krista on Prepsteaders, what you've done. Every savory dish that comes out of my kitchen, I've got a little of this sprinkled in with a whole lot of love. All right, there you have it. I hope you found that as simple as I have, and I hope that you don't stumble over which method you don't have access to in your kitchen. Make it however you want, but get yourself some onion powder, homemade, with your own onions if you've got them, and I'm telling you, you're going to be amazing in the kitchen. Until I see you again though, will you take the time to share this episode with someone you love? Would you take the time to ask God who it is that you need to be a blessing to this week? And will you go out and be a blessing to someone right away, today even? Until I see you next time though, God bless you. Bye. Hey, there are so many promises that the children of God get to cash in as needed when times get rough. And I want to share one of those with you today. This is right out of the 91st Psalm, there in the middle of your Holy Bible. And it's verses 5, 6, and 7. It says this: "Thou shalt not be afraid for the terror by night, nor for the arrow that flieth by day, nor the pestilence that walks in the darkness, nor the destruction that wasteth at noonday. 1,000 shall fall at thy side, and even 10,000 at thy right hand, but it shall not come nigh thee." That's out of the King James Version. And I hope that you will remember that today. It's getting so dark out. Go out and glow